Read, remember, repeat. Super day, everybody. I hope y'all pumped up. I hope y'all feeling good. I hope y'all rejuvenated. You know what I mean? Another day to extend the ball. You feel me? Uh, yeah, man. Shit, man. I hope y'all definitely tapping in, man. Shit, reading is important, man. They used to hide that from us back in the day, and to notice in the year 2000 or so, people are not even picking up a book. Is like they didn't even want us to read back in the day. But, shows you how powerful a book can be. You know what I mean? But let's tap right into it. You already know. More than that, he told the Buccaneers among them wherein lay the errors of their customary piracy. Their purposes, he inferred, had been to create monopolies, raise prices, and pay themselves fat dividends out of privilege. Squab condemned the system in his heartiest manner. The short-sightedness of such a policy, he told his hearers, lay in the fact that it restricted the market in an era when everything cried for expansion. By cheapening the cost of steel, he argued an ever-expanding market would be created. More uses for steel would be devised, and a goodly portion of the world trade could be captured. Actually, though, he did not know it. Squab was an apostle of modern mass production, so the dinner at the University Club came to an end. Morgan went home to think about Squab's rosy predictions. Squab went back to Pittsburgh to run the steel business for Andrew Carnegie, while Gary and the rest went back to their stock tickers to fiddle around in anticipation of the next move. It was not long coming. It took Morgan about 1 week to digest the feast of reason Squab had placed before him. When he had assumed, when he had assured himself that no financial indigestion was no result, he sent for Squab and found that young woman rather coy. Mr. Carnegie, Squab indicated, Mr. Carnegie, Squab indicated, might not like it if he found his trusted company president had been flirting with the Emperor of Wall Street, the street upon which Carnegie was resolved never to tread. Then it was suggested by John W. Gates, the go-between, that if Squab happened to be in the Bellevue Hotel in Philadelphia, J.P. Morgan might also happen to be there. When Squab arrived, however, Morgan was inconveniently ill at his New York home, and so on the elder man's pressing invitation. Squab went to New York and presented himself at the door of the Financial Library. Now certain economic historians have professed the belief that from the beginning to the end of the drama, the stage was set by Andrew Carnegie, that the dinner to Squab, the famous speech, the Sunday night conference between Squab and the Money King were events arranged by the Kenny Scott. The truth is exactly the opposite. When Squab was called in to consummate the deal, he didn't even know whether the little boss, as Andrew was called, would so much as listen to an offer to sell, particularly to a group of men whom Andrew regarded as being endowed with something less than holiness. But Squab did take into the conference with him, in his own handwriting, 6 sheets of copper plate figures representing to his mind the physical worth and the potential earning capacity of every steel company he regarded as an essential star in the new metal firmament. 4 men pondered over their figures all night. The chief, of course, was Morgan, steadfast in his belief in the divine right of money. With him was his aristocratic partner, Robert Bacon, a scholar and gentleman. The third was John W. Gates, whom Morgan scorned as a gambler and used as a tool. The fourth was Squab, who knew more about the process of making and selling steel than any whole group of men then living. Throughout that conference, the Pittsburghers' figures were never questioned. If he said a company was worth so much, then it was worth that much and no more. He was insistent upon in the combination only those concerns he nominated. He had conceived a corporation in which there would be no duplication, not even to satisfy the greed of friends who wanted to unload their companies upon the broad Morgan shoulders. Thus, he left out, by design, a number of the larger concerns upon which the walruses and carpenters of Wall Street had cast hungry eyes. When dawn came, Morgan rose and straightened his back. Only one question remained. "Do you think you can persuade Andrew Carnegie to sell?" he asked. "I can try," said Squab. "If you can get him to sell, I will undertake the matter," said Morgan. "So far, so good. But will Carnegie sell? How much will he demand?" Squab thought about 320 million. What would he take payment in? Common or preferred stocks, bonds, cash? Nobody could raise a third of $1 billion in cash. There was a golf game in January on the frost cracking heath of the St. Andrews Links in Westchester, with Andrew bundled up in sweaters against the cold, and Charlie talking volubly as usual to keep his spirits up, but no word of business was mentioned until the pair sat down in the cozy warmth of the Carnegie cottage hard by. Then, with the same persuasiveness that had hypnotized 80 millionaires at the University Club, Squab poured out the glittering promises of retirement and comfort, of untold millions to satisfy the old man's social caprices. Carnegie capitulated, wrote a figure on a slip of paper, handed it to Squab, and said, "All right, that's what we'll sell for." The figure was approximately $400 million and was reached by taking the 320 million mentioned by Squab as a basic figure and adding to it 80 million to represent the increased capital value over the previous 2 years. Later on the deck of a transatlantic liner, the Scotchman said ruefully to Morgan, "I wish I had asked you for 100 million more." "If you had asked for it, you'd have gotten it," Morgan told him cheerfully. There was an uproar, of course. A British correspondent cabled that the foreign steel world was appalled by the gigantic combination. President Hadley of Yale declared that unless trusts were regulated, the country might expect an emperor in Washington within the next 25 years. But the able stock manipulator, Keene, went at his work of shoving the new stock at the public so vigorously that all excess water, estimated by some at nearly 600 million, was absorbed in a twinkling. So Carnegie had his millions, and the Morgan Syndicator had 62 million for all its trouble, and all the boys from Gates to Gary had their millions. The 38-year-old Squab had his reward. He was made president of the new corporation and remained in control until 1930. The dramatic story of big business, which you have just finished, was included in the book because it is a perfect illustration of the method by which desire can be transmuted into its physical equivalent. I imagine some readers will question the statement that a mere intangible desire can be converted into its physical equivalent. Doubtless, some will say, you cannot convert nothing into something. The answer is in the story of the United States Steel. That giant organization was created in the mind of one man. The plan by which the organization was provided with the steel mills that gave it financial stability was created in the mind of the same man. His faith, his desire, his imagination, his persistence were the real ingredients that went into United States Steel. The steel mills and mechanical equipment acquired by the corporation after it had been brought into legal existence, with incidental but careful analysis will disclose the fact that the appraised value of the properties acquired by the corporation increased in value by an estimated 600 million by the mere transaction which consolidated them under one management. In other words, Charles M. Schwab's idea, plus the faith with which he conveyed it to the minds of J.P. Morgan and the others, was marketed for a profit of approximately 600 million. Not an insignificant sum for a single idea. What happened to some of the men who took their share of the millions of dollars of profit made by this transaction is a matter with which we are not now concerned. The important feature of the astounding achievement is that it serves as unquestionable evidence of the soundness of the philosophy described in this book, because this philosophy was the warp and the woof of the entire transaction. Moreover, the practicability of the philosophy has been established by the fact that the United States Steel Corporation prospered and became one of the richest and most powerful corporations in America, employing thousands of people, developing new uses for steel, and opening new markets. Thus proving that the 600 million in profit which the squab idea produced was earned, riches begin in the form of thought. The amount is limited only by the person in the mind the thought is put into motion. Faith removes limitations. Remember this when you are ready to bargain with life for whatever it is that you ask for as your price for having passed this way. Remember also that the man who created the United States Steel Corporation was practically unknown at the time. He was merely Andrew Carnegie's Man Friday until he gave birth to his famous idea. After that, he quickly rose to position of power, fame, and riches. There are no limitations to the mind except those we acknowledge. Both poverty and riches are the offspring of thought. Chapter 4, Auto Suggestion. Let's go.